Good evening, Horror Moon community. Tonight, I invite you to immerse yourself in 5 stories that will transport you to dark corners where the inexplicable becomes reality. Each tale will bring you closer to the legends and mysteries many have lived, but few dare to recount. If you're here, it's because fear attracts you as much as it does us. Turn off the lights, adjust the volume, and let yourself be enveloped. Welcome to this corner of shadows and secrets. This is Horror Moon. Let's begin with the Lady of the Abandoned Mill. In the heart of a mountainous valley stood an old mill, shrouded in shadows left by time. Its large, rusted blades were a silent reminder of a forgotten tragedy. Though locals avoided the place, the stories persisted. A woman in white roamed the mill, trapped among the gears of time. Clara, a young photographer seeking paranormal stories, arrived in the town determined to document its legends. When she heard about the Lady of the Mill, she knew she had found what she was looking for. Ignoring the villagers' warnings, she decided to explore the mill. One cold moonless night, Clara entered the mill. The entrance, overgrown with weeds, was barely visible. Crossing the threshold, the air grew heavy, and a strong musty smell surrounded her. Her flashlight revealed peeling walls and dusty gears that had long been still. Each step echoed, as if the mill itself were listening. She climbed to the second floor, following a faint noise like a whisper emanating from the walls. When she reached the top, she saw a female figure, dressed in white and stained with something dark, standing with her back to Clara. Her messy hair hid her face. Clara raised her camera to take a picture, but the flash revealed something she would never forget. The figure slowly turned, revealing a gaunt face with hollow eyes that seemed to absorb the light. "Why have you come to my torment?" the woman said, extending a hand toward Clara. At that moment, the mill's blades began to turn, though no one had moved them for decades. The sound was deafening. Clara tried to run, but the exit door was locked. The villagers found her camera outside the mill the next day. The last photo showed a pale, bony hand gripping Clara's arm. She was never seen again. The next story is called Aunt Rosa's Mirror. Objects passed down through generations often carry secrets and memories, but some, like Aunt Rosa's mirror, hold something much darker presences that should never have been awakened. When Amelia inherited the mirror, she saw it as a beautiful family keepsake. Its ornate golden frame was intricately carved with figures of angels and demons. After placing it in her living room, she noticed that the reflection seemed unusually vivid, as if the glass had a life of its own. The first few nights were uneventful, but then the dreams began. Amelia dreamt of a woman in black, trapped behind the glass, pounding and begging to be freed. Initially, she dismissed them as mere nightmares, but things took a sinister turn when she realized the mirror didn't always reflect what was in the room. One early morning, a low hum from the mirror woke her up. Approaching it, she saw the glass was covered in handprints, as though someone had been trying to escape. She turned on the light, but the marks vanished. She decided to get rid of the mirror and took it to a junkyard. However, upon returning home, she found the mirror back in her living room, as though it had never been moved. From then on, the woman in black began to appear not only in the mirror, but also in the reflections of windows and puddles. Amelia tried to ignore it, but each time she did, the woman seemed to get closer. One night, as Amelia slept, she felt a cold hand on her neck. Opening her eyes, she saw the woman standing beside her bed, her eyes sunken and her smile twisted. Since then, Amelia keeps all her lights on, but she knows that in the mirror's reflection, the woman is still waiting. Next, we move on to the Healer of the Hill. In the most remote corners of Mexico, the dark secrets of ancient traditions remain alive. On top of a hill lived a healer known for her extraordinary abilities, but no one returned the same after seeking her help. The Garcia family, desperate to cure the father's illness, turned to the healer. It was their last hope after doctors failed to explain his sudden weakness and fever. Upon arrival, the woman greeted them with a piercing gaze and a face etched with deep wrinkles. The air smelled of dried herbs and burnt wax. The healer explained that the illness was unnatural, a result of a broken pact with something they should never have disturbed. She offered a solution, a ritual that would heal the father, but warned it would come at a cost they could not imagine. Desperate, they agreed. During the ritual, the healer lit black candles and chanted in an unrecognizable tongue. The air grew heavy, and a suffocating sense of dread filled the room. The father convulsed as a dark shadow seemed to rise from his chest. Finally, he fell to the floor and began to breathe normally. He was cured. That night, however, the 3 Garcia children began acting strangely. Their eyes turned dull, as if devoid of life. They laughed at odd hours, their laughter sharp and unsettling. When the parents tried to pray, the children began speaking in a language they couldn't understand. One night, neighbors heard blood-curdling screams from the house. When they entered, they found the children sitting in a circle, surrounded by black candles, chanting in an unknown language. The parents were huddled in a corner, paralyzed with fear. The healer was never seen again, but the house remains abandoned, echoing with the children's eerie laughter on full moon nights. Horror Moon community, I want to take a moment to thank you for staying with us so far. Your comments and support motivate us to keep sharing these stories that test our courage. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Remember, this channel is as much yours as it is ours, and together, we explore the darkest corners of the world. Now, let's move on to the next story. Next, we continue with the Phantom Bus. In the desolate highways of southern Mexico, truckers speak of a bus that picks up passengers in the dead of night but never reaches its destination. It's a warning Diego, a young worker, chose to ignore in his rush to get home. Diego, who worked in a nearby town, often took the last bus of the night to return home. That night he missed his usual ride and waited until 2 a.m. when the bus arrived. It looked normal, though a bit old. He boarded, paid his fare, and sat near the middle. From the start, something felt off. The other passengers sat in complete silence, staring straight ahead as if frozen. The bus lights flickered, and the driver, a man with an emotionless face, didn't say a word. As they traveled, the scenery outside faded into darkness. There were no lights from nearby towns, only a void. Diego looked around, but none of the passengers reacted. A bone-chilling cold enveloped the bus. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the passengers moved in unison. They all turned their heads toward Diego, their faces empty and their mouths curling into grotesque smiles. The driver looked at him through the rearview mirror and said in a deep voice, "You've boarded the wrong bus." The bus stopped in the middle of nowhere. One by one, the passengers stood and walked toward the door, vanishing into the darkness. Diego tried to get off, but the doors wouldn't open. Panicked, he broke a window and jumped. Rolling onto the highway, he looked back to see the bus's lights retreating slowly, as if watching him. Since that night, Diego avoids lonely highways, but every time he passes that route, he sees the bus lights in the distance, waiting for him. And finally, we end with the old woman by the river. In a small coastal town, the river was not only a source of life, but also the setting of a tragedy that left its mark forever. The elders spoke of a figure that appeared in the water at dusk, calling out to the unwary to join her. A 10-year-old boy loved playing by the river. Despite his mother's warnings, he couldn't resist exploring beyond the safe areas. One afternoon, as he played by the shore, he heard a soft singing coming from the water. Curious, he moved closer and saw her, an old woman with long gray hair submerged up to her chest, smiling and motioning for him to come closer. Hesitated, but his curiosity won. He stepped toward the water, but the woman vanished in an instant. Confused, he returned home. But that night, the nightmares began. In them, the old woman called out to him, whispering his name and reaching out her arms. In the following days, grew pale, and his eyes sunk deep into their sockets. At night he muttered in his sleep, saying, "I need to go back to the river." His mother, desperate, sought help in the town, but no one could explain what was happening. One early morning, disappeared. His mother found his footprints leading to the riverbank, but there was no sign of him. Since then, fishermen have reported hearing a boy's voice mingling with the old woman's song on quiet nights. Some claim to have seen them in the water, whispering to those who venture too close. And so, another night of chilling tales comes to an end. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. Remember, fear is a door few dare to open, but here, together, we explore what lies beyond. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share this video. See you on the next night, when Horror Moon will shine once more, illuminating the darkest corners of our nightmares. Rest, if you can.